All right, are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Welcome to today's episode of the Compassionate Conversation series, The Power of Play. Time and presence are the greatest gifts that we can give. Thank you for being a part of today's conversation. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Catherine, and I'm the author of Awakening the Vulnerable Heart and my new book that just came out, Inspiration from What Is. My books will be available afterwards for purchase. Why is compassion so crucial for mental and emotional well-being? We all share the universal need to be seen and accepted as our authentic selves. Compassion validates the humanity of others. Listening with curiosity versus judgment creates a more peaceful existence. The song Underdog by Alicia Keys delivers an impactful message about the value and beauty of compassionate connection. Here is the chorus that forever changed my worldview. One conversation, a simple moment, the things that change us if we notice, when we look up sometimes. Looking up physically from our phones and AirPods. Looking up from our absorption with ourselves, looking up to see beauty in plain sight, looking up to see the humanity in others. My hope is that today's conversation will serve as that moment. I have prepared a list of questions to serve as a map for today, but we may take some detours as this is a conversation. Questions and comments will be welcomed at the end of the program. And finally, may I ask that everyone take a moment to please silence your phones. Thank you. A child who does not play is not a child. But the man who does not play has forever lost the child who lived in him. That powerful quote is from the poet Pablo Neruda. I intentionally chose the power of play as today's topic. There is currently a sense of heaviness surrounding us, both domestically and internationally. Moreover, we are about to embark on the holiday season, which is full of obligations and shoulds. While I cannot solve these challenges, I can suggest a wonderful anecdote, consciously incorporating lightness into our lives by utilizing the mindset of young children, being firmly rooted in the present, operating from a place of curiosity rather than judgment, and treating ourselves and others with compassion. These tools safeguard our minds, bodies, and spirits in periods of upheaval. I am so excited to introduce our guests today, Julie Olson and Kim Hoppe, and both of them have implemented these philosophies in their lives. Julie Olson is the creator of the popular Facebook page Mommy Plays Playmobil and a realtor with Shore West Realtors. She will share her incredible wit and story, how she came to utilize play to navigate challenging seasons. Kim Hoppe is right where she works in the CPL. She's a youth services assistant, and she will share her beautiful perspective on how moving through life, utilizing the curiosity and self-compassion of young children results in more contentment and more fulfillment. We will start today's conversation chatting with Julie. We will then converse with Kim, and we're going to end our conversation today with a set of questions for both of them. Okay, Julie, we are going to start at surface level and then we are going to go deep. How and when did your fascination with collecting Playmobil begin?
When my kids were small, my friend Nadia in Germany would send them Playmobil for the holidays and their birthdays and stuff like that. And I had known what it was, but I never had it when I was a kid or anything. So I just thought it was cool. You know, it was very satisfying me to sort all of the little pieces. It intensely entertained me watching my kids play with it. And I really liked it. And I looked forward to them getting their birthday gifts from Nadia because I knew it would be something good that for me.
Tell us about the process of creating your scenes, because they're so beautiful and detailed on Facebook. What I'm curious about is how long it takes you to set them up. How do you photograph them? Do you come up with the scene first? Do you come up with the quip first? And do you observe yourself to be in like a flow state during that process? What can you tell us?
It's usually that something will happen or someone will tell me something, and then I'll think, that's funny, and it would make a good Playmobil scene. So then I'll set up the scene, and it doesn't take long because I'm a pretty decisive person. I know what I want to do. I know what I want it to look like. And then, I take a picture of it with my iPhone, upload it to Facebook, and then write the caption. And I will play with the caption a little bit because it needs to be not very long. It needs to get the point across. So sometimes that is what probably takes the longest to convey what I'm trying to convey in that scenario with the toys. And it's always something that has either happened to me, it is something that a friend has said. I can't count how many times, I'll be at out to dinner with girlfriends and someone will call me and say, "Was that post about me?" And I'm like, "It was. We all know how much you love vodka." So, even little things like I had a friend whose husband had a vasectomy, and then she's like, "That was about me." And I was like, "It totally was." And even my kids, are like my daughter has even commented on Mommy Plays Playmobil, and she's like, "People, this was about me." And I'm like, "You're darn right it was, Callie Olson." So, yes.
Well, thank you for giving us the whole story behind the little stories that we love so much. So you are famous because you have reframed the I-43 construction chaos into what I like to call a wonderland of creativity. Give us the backstory on the moment the idea of Ed and portraying the chaos into creativity occurred.
It was when that section of Port Washington Road, like where you're leaving Fox Point and you're going into Bayside, and it's right by I-43. It was before the sound wall went up, but that section right before County Line Road was totally torn up, and the road was so narrow on both sides that I was like, we're not all going to fit. And I thought, I'm going to sideswipe someone. And then I don't even remember what the scenario was, but it was just a gripe about the construction in that particular section. And then as I was going through my Playmobil construction stuff, looking for like the pieces I would need to set it up, I found this guy in a construction hat with that goofy mustache and the tie and the work coat, and I looked at him and I was like, "Oh, this is the foreman." And then he was named Ed, which my friend Ed was like, "Is that about me?" And I was like, "No, I promise that isn't about you." I thought Ed would make a really good foreman. So he's been kind of central in most of the things, and he's usually the scapegoat that we have to have someone to like gripe about. So it's Ed. He gets griped about.
So when these situations in your life come up, do you keep them in memory, or do you like pull over and like start writing notes in your phone? How does that happen when the inspiration hits you?
I sometimes will, like at a stoplight, will jot down on my hand and then send myself an email when I get to work. So I'll send myself emails that say like, put up more traffic cones, Ed, and then that will jog my memory. Because I'll think of sometimes I thought, "Oh, I had such a funny one in the car. What was it?" And then I can't remember. But if I've written it on my hand and then emailed myself, then I'll remember. And I can set it up when I get home.
I love that. So as I said, we were going to start at surface level and we're going to go deep. Let's chat about using Playmobil as a means of putting a humorous spin on challenging life circumstances. Your vignettes showcase vulnerability in navigating parenting, marriage, and Southeast Wisconsin traffic. Tell us about it when it first occurred to you to express your feelings about hard things through Playmobil, consciously reframing the hard through humor.
Well, I am a huge believer in the fact that being a grown-up is hard. It's not always fun. It's not always easy. Being married is hard. Being a parent is hard. But you have to find the joy and the absurdity in life, or being a grown-up is just going to be like one of those crummy mugs from Hallmark in 1989 that says life sucks and then you die. So if you want to approach life that way, have at it. That's on you. But I think that finding the funny in adulthood is really, really important, and it makes the days a lot more interesting and a lot more fun. So that's kind of how it is. And my husband and I, he's right over there, have been married a really long time, and we have 3 fantastic kids, and marriage isn't always easy. It isn't always pretty, but you keep working at it every day, and you have to find the funny in everything that happens, and it just makes life better together.
See, I love what you just shared with us because, as I said, there was this chaos construction stuff going on, and you reframed it. It's really difficult sometimes to admit things that can be hard, like parenting and marriage. How did you harness the courage to be so vulnerable about expressing that?
I don't think there was any harness. I'm a very open person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I can't hide how I feel about things because it's going to come out. And for me, it was just a natural outlet I find that writing my emotions helps me sort through things that I'm feeling, whether it's writing it down in like a journal or whatever, or writing Playmobil scenes to navigate emotions. It's just how I cope with things. And I don't think that there was ever any conscious decision on that this is how I'm going to cope with things. It's just part of how I operate.
Because it's a beautiful thing and it's a brave thing, because all of us had a wonderful chat before all of you people even got here. And we were just talking about how when one person shows that certain things and feeling certain things can be okay, it almost gives permission for other people. And by showing the vulnerability and the humor, it just has helped so many people. And I consider it very brave. I'm telling you, it's wonderful and it's brave. But you kind of started answering my next question. And my next question was, does the process of creating these scenes helps you to kind of process things? Does it help you to accept what is, the things that can't be controlled? Does it help keep you in the present?
Definitely. I'm not a person who likes to drive, which is odd considering my job. I drive a lot. But the I-43 and all of that construction was, and still is, very, very stressful to me, because I never know which on-ramp is going to be open. I never know how I can actually get somewhere. And so, just accepting that, none of the on-ramps are going to be open. In order to get, to downtown Milwaukee, I probably will either have to take Lake Drive, but that's closed at Capitol Drive. So I'm going to have to drive Port Washington Road all the way down to Silver Spring and get on the I there, or go up to Brown Deer and get on the interstate there. But that's a really awkward turn off of Brown Deer Road. And then the lead up to the I-43, you have to gun it the minute you make that turn. All that's very stressful to me. So instead of being upset and stressed out about it, I just think it's funny.
But that's the whole process of reframing, which is beautiful. And again, by doing that yourself and sharing it, you're just giving other people the ability to see through your eyes, which is a beautiful thing. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show 3 days before the election, to just give us a chance to just kind of really look at things in a different way and find the positive things. Speaking of that, what is your reaction to the popularity of your Facebook page and the recent Journal Sentinel article about your aptitude for Playmobil?
When the Journal Sentinel called and said, hey, we want to do this story, I was like, I don't think anyone is going to, nobody cares. And I was like, it's just my dumb toys. I like my toys. But I think it's funny. People always are saying, oh, you should put them all together in a book. You should do, monetize it, and you should do this and this and this. But to me, that would ruin it, because it would put pressure on me to perform in some way for people when, for me, this is a very organic thing. Not every Tuesday at 4 p.m. I'm scheduling a post. It's when the mood strikes me. Like, there'll be a week where I don't post anything. And there was once a couple weeks, because Craig and I were seeing the polar bears in the subarctic, and people were messaging me. They're like, "Where are you? What's going on?" And I'm like, "I'm on vacation, dude." But so it has to stay organic, and it has to stay like fun, because the minute it becomes like a pressure thing, it wouldn't be fun to me. And I like to have fun. So.
Can you describe how it felt to discover that people really did feel a connection to your play and your embracing of seeing the positive things when you realized that you'd touched so many people? How did that impact you?
It made me really happy, and I wanted to celebrate it, because I had posted something about, I think it was last year during the holidays. It might have been the cargo ship or the cruise ship. I can't remember which. It was a big boat I'd gotten that we drove an ungodly amount of miles to pick up. And my husband has a lot of patience in this. But I said something about, these are my favorite things. What are some of your favorite things? And I thought maybe like, a dozen people would tell me their favorite things. And I had hundreds of submissions. And I tried really hard because then I would create a scene for everyone with their favorite things. And it ended up being super rad, because like one lady said that she loves to snowmobile in the winter. And I have a Playmobil snowmobile, and I got to use it. And I was always like, oh, when am I ever going to get to use this? And there was a lady who said that she loved to participate in the River West 24, 53212, and she dressed as a bumblebee. I had a lady in a bumblebee costume, and obviously bicycles. So I got to use them and set up the scene, and I think it made me more happy than people seeing themselves in their little scenes. It was so fun. It was great.
Well, I'm going to go off my map for a minute. It's so wonderful to sit here. I mean, I'm observing the joy. Everyone in the audience is observing the joy. To just see the person who brings us so much joy and lightness, to hear you talk about. I mean, I should have had you bring a Playmobil set, and we should have just taken like 40 things at random and had you create something. But it's just so beautiful seeing your joy and delight in what you do, and the fact that it's rooted and it brings you joy and contentment. And to see that moving out into the world is really special. So this is the last question I've got for you. We're going deep. We're still staying deep. So your vignettes showcase a playful authenticity in processing everyday life. Do you feel the rest of us need to be more open about life being complicated?
I think that when you're open about things that are scary and strange, it helps work through them. You can't keep stuff inside. And it's okay to, I used to be almost not ashamed, but I thought, what is wrong with me that I like these toys more than my kids do, or that I didn't want Henry to mix up the space and the castle, because I wanted them all separate. And then I started thinking, well, why not mix up the space and the castle? The knights and the astronauts can exist together. And it'll probably be really funny. And so once I thought, you know what, this is who I am. I'm 51 years old, and I really like Playmobil, and I like collecting it. There was a certain freedom in that, and just be who you are. You can't be anybody else. You can't hide what you love, and you shouldn't, because life is too short to not feel good about who you are. Let your freak flag fly, man.
Love it. How do the rest of us get to that place of beautiful vulnerability? What is your advice?
Do you, be you. Have fun. Like, whatever you're into, own it. Like, ain't no shame in that game.
Awesome. Julie, that was delightful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm smiling. Kim, it's time to delve into some beautiful things that you have to share with us. Kim, you have created the most beautiful term, and it's called Mary Poppins people. Can you define for us what a Mary Poppins person is?
Sure. And I realize when I knew that we were going to talk about this, that I think that my image of Mary Poppins might not actually completely match up with the Mary Poppins of the film that a lot of us envision as the original. Because I realized later on, she was a little judgy and not afraid to shush the kids sometimes. But I always gravitated towards the Mary Poppins character that wasn't afraid to just break out into song, that when the kids needed a little bit more color and imagination, all of a sudden they were jumping into the sidewalk chalk and they were in this magical world. And we all have those people. I hope every single child had at least one person in their life that was that uncle or that teacher, a parent, that at the big events, the big family Thanksgiving dinner, was found not in the kitchen gabbing and gossiping about all the other relatives that didn't show up, but you would find that person on the ground surrounded by all the children. They were that adult that was singing the silly song, reading a cozy story, or telling a spooky story, or joining in the cartwheel contest out on the lawn with all of the kids. And I had an Aunt Pat who was that person to me. I also had a 4th grade teacher, Mr. Smith, who wasn't afraid to just up and start racing all the kids or creating this crazy wild story from the top of his head when we were on a field trip out in the woods. And those are Mary Poppins people. To me, they were adults that still seem to be feeding off of our childhood energy, and we were feeding off of their energy just as much.
That's beautiful. So how did experiencing that Mary Poppins mindset influence you to decide to go into working with children as your vocation?
Yes. So I find that with people like my 4th grade teacher, it was such a safe space that they had created for us kids. We are born without any awareness of other people's judgment. When we're babies, we're toddlers, we don't realize that there's all these other people that are watching our every move and making these decisions of, did we make the right choice or the wrong choice? And at some point, for many children, there's this bubble of safety, of vulnerability that all of a sudden gets burst. And we become very hyper aware of the judgment, that when we are making mistakes, that others see those mistakes. But before that, if you hit the rewind button, kids are so good at having this beginner mindset where they are they're learning through their mistakes. Their entire childhood is troubleshooting. So if you think, for example, what I see often, we have our Tinker Lab over in the Youth Services Department, and Legos are a fave. It's common to see a toddler sitting there at the table with this massive bucket of Legos and their clumsy little fingers, and they'll drop a Lego. And then they grab another one and they're trying to build the castle or the ambulance, and they drop another one. And eventually you'll have 18 Legos that are laying on the floor, and you've got the one Lego that finally made it onto their structure, and they're so pumped. And I feel like kids are the best teachers for us, that they don't drop the Lego and just give up. And so often we as adults are so afraid of making mistakes, and especially somebody else witnessing it. And I love working somewhere that I'm constantly watching all these little teachers that are demonstrating resilience.
It's really interesting when you are observing the children playing with these toys and like something happens. Is there a certain age where you notice where they're kind of just doing their own thing and experimenting and oops? And is there a certain age where you notice in their face where they realize that they might have made a mistake and they perceive it differently?
That's a really good question, because I feel like, I think that journey is so different for every single child. It's the most entertaining, of course, to watch the babies and the toddlers, right? Because they'll just do anything or say anything. Yesterday, I had a little girl who shushed me because my library cart was too squeaky when I came around the corner.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that those are the best examples of kids that aren't aware that, oh, that could have hurt somebody's feelings. And I struggle to say definitely once especially kids are in that upper elementary and that tween years that they are a lot less likely to get wild and crazy with the Legos or the Playmobiles, because that is when a lot of kids start to have that awareness.
Yeah, in my own research, I learned, especially for girls, it's around age 10, that it's just a huge line in the sand around age 10.
I believe it.
And, you and I have spoken before, and I just love your embracing of watching young children, because like Kim said, the Legos fall to the floor. It's like, that's okay, here I go. And just giving ourselves that same compassion and that same love and just being like, that's okay. I mean, how many times do we do something innocuous and then the self-talk starts that isn't the best? Just thinking back to these simple children, we may have our phones and we may have a credit card and a driver's license and we're pretty sophisticated. They are operating out of a level of purity and compassion and love where they simply are just viewing everything with wide eyes, ready to take it in. And I just love that
And they're
perspective.
so pumped when we join in instead of just
Yes.
being this observer and watching them, oftentimes with a phone in people's hands, but instead to be able to jump in and play with them and to model making the mistakes, because that's where, going back to these Mary Poppins figures, that when we as kids were making mistakes, they were celebrating it and they were approaching it with curiosity.
Versus judgment.
Exactly, yes.
Well, I really like the idea of you mentioning playing with children. And it was interesting, I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was talking about how if you watch toddlers at the park, a lot of times they'll go toddle off, they'll go do their thing, and then they'll come back to an adult as kind of like a pool wall. I think it's good for us to be involved with their play, but also give them space. But a lot of times, my baby is 26 and a half, so I raised her without cell phones and without social media. And when I was at the park, we were interacting with other adults and kids. You see so many kids out now with their caregivers, and they're just literally on the phone. And it's like you don't want parents who are totally snowplowing, but you want parents who have a presence, who can quiet their adult busy minds and just be in the here and now with the kids.
Yes, and not all personalities always want to be playing with somebody else. There is something to say about being in that flow state where kids oftentimes do want to be in their little world and they want to create their structure. They want to do their crafting with zero goal in mind. However, as adults, we can be modeling our own separate play and them just seeing that we're doing it, not to entertain them, but actually for our own either coping mechanism, like you do with the Playmobiles, or for our own moving meditation. It's important for them to watch that adults don't stop the play.
Well, speaking of that, I would love if you would share with us how you incorporated play into your adult life through both hiring a bike coach in midlife and snowboarding. And if you'd especially share your philosophy on snowboarding, where you had an extra board to share and you couldn't get a taker, I think that'd be a great thing for everyone to learn from today.
Sure, absolutely. So I have to backtrack a little bit to first explain that my bubble had burst and I became a very, very shy kid. And as I became a young adult, I definitely felt the lifestyle creep that all of a sudden I had a job and I was expected to keep a house nice, and then we ended up adding children to our life, and that is a lot of stress. And without any intention or planning, I feel like a very serious person, and I lost the play. And so it's not something that's natural for me. So I want to say, number one, I believe that play is like a practice. It's like when you hear somebody doing yoga, it's not something that everybody automatically thinks to do in their life. And I became very aware, my husband and we would go to a lot of music festivals, the hippy dippy ones. You're camping in Smelly for like 3-4 days. And I would notice a lot of these adults that would be hoop dancers. And that's very much a form of play, in my opinion. And I would be so in awe watching these adults that were doing it and moving to the music freely. They just seemed to be back in this bubble. They could have cared less what other people were thinking. And they drop their hoop and they just pick it back up and they just start dancing again. And I was in awe, and I never had considered the fact that I could be that adult. It was more like I became an audience member when I was observing. And I have this very vivid memory of being at the roller skating rink with my older child, who was just old enough to start roller skating but was very, very unsteady. And I thought, I'm going to rock this, because every Saturday morning at Skateland, I was at my roller skating lessons. This is going to be like hopping back on a bike. And so we went there. It's pretty crowded. We're holding hands. And because of the unsteadiness of both of us, which took me by surprise, I ended up falling. And it didn't really hurt that much, but I will admit I ended up yelling at my kid in front of everybody. I was very reactive, and it took me by surprise, and I realized that it was because I was so embarrassed that everybody just saw this grown woman on her butt, cartoon character style. So I remember later we're taking a little snack break and we're hanging out on the side, and I'm watching all of these kids that are roller skating, and they're dropping like bombs. And then they just kind of pop back up. Sometimes they're laughing, they keep going. Sometimes they cry, but they skate their way through it, and they just keep on skating, and they kept getting better. And I was wondering, what is it about me as an adult that I'm taking everything so seriously? I'm even roller skating seriously. And so I'm at home, and I'm perusing the Park and Rec catalog, trying to find programs to sign my kids up for, and I saw a hoop dancing class. And it was for adults, and I was like, this is it. There's other people who actually start from the beginning, because that's the tricky thing as adults. If we see other adults playing in some way, it being creative, music, whatever it is, we think that they already had to have mastered it before they entered adulthood. And so I joined this hoop dancing class, and there's all of these men and women, and they're all learning how and dropping hoops, and hoops are flying across the room and hitting other adults in the head, and they're all laughing about it. So I feel like that was the seed that was planted for me to give myself permission to start playing. And once I did that, that was like this virus that grew. I kept wanting to try new things. I became practically addicted to hobbies then at that point. And so years down the road, I'm trying different things. I already knew how to snowboard. And we were living in Utah a few years ago. I'm turning 40, and I realize, again, I'm watching or hearing stories about people that are mountain biking, and they look like they have their childhood back. And I wanted it, but I was so afraid. I'm turning 40. If I take one fall, I'm going to end up like throwing my back out, and I'm going to be done for the rest of my life. So I decided as my 40th birthday gift to hire an awesome female instructor, and paid for, I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 private foundational lessons. And it was my gift to myself for her to teach me how to mountain bike. And hopping back on that bike instantly made me feel like a child all over again. But I want to say though, I think a lot of times people envision that play means high energy. And I know I can't tell everybody go out and get a mountain bike instructor or go roller skating, because seriously, it really, really hurts when you fall. And medical bills are very expensive. But I think that it's important to remember that play is so much. It can be something like playing Playmobil. It can be learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons, or I'm a big tabletop gamer. Cozy video games, coloring in a coloring book. It doesn't have to be something that's high energy.
Well, your thoughts have been really enlightening. You said something that really resonated with me, and you said play is practice. You know, I went into a yoga studio recently, and they basically said, you know, we'll see you next time on the mat. And it just really makes me think, you know, if we view as adults our recreation and play to be something like yoga or something like pickleball, What if we expand it, like you said, and use play as a practice? And as you just said, it doesn't have to be physical and needing, gold standard health insurance. It can be something as simple as pulling your mindset out of the busy mind to the present, putting away the judgment, taking out the curiosity. But you gave us a gem there because that's something we all can do.
Well, and you're right. And with such busy lives, it unfortunately, for kids, play is naturally built into their schedules. So if it's a school year, they already have recess time. A lot of teachers hopefully are teaching through play still in the classrooms. If it's in the summertime, you've got your neighborhood kids that you're all just running around like a pack playing together. As adults, I really do believe that's important for us to schedule in our play and making sure that we create that time. Because if we don't create time and we're just hoping it's naturally going to happen, all of a sudden it's 9:30 at night and you're in bed and you're scrolling on your phone. So by being able to actually practice planning ahead of time, a chunk that is so precious and nothing else is going to happen during this time, so that I have time to play whatever that thing is that makes me feel good or helps me cope with reality, then you can get flexible once that time comes.
I love that thought. And basically, we can use our higher function organization skills that we have as adults, but then channel those into moving to a quieter mind. I love that. And I've got one final question. You've really given us so many beautiful things to think about. Again, what's really resonating with me is play as practice, meaning that there's a place for all of us to incorporate it. But my last question for you is, someone who works with young children, what do you wish we would do differently when speaking to and spending time with them?
So when we're spending time with children, number one, I feel like it's so important that when they do make a mistake or they end up doing something that is not as fast as we envision that it could be, they clearly are experiencing some emotions that are very real and very relevant, that instead we are approaching it with curiosity, and that we have the ability to get flexible and scrap the plans, or be able to ask them questions. I feel like kids so often, they not only are so aware of all those like little minute details, like the fly that's on the window while you're trying to give them directions to wipe down the toilet or whatever it is, but they're also very, very aware of what's happening inside of their body too. And it's important for us to show that that is relevant and it is okay for them to be vulnerable without us having any expectations of who they are, because I would hope that they also shouldn't have expectations, as well as our adult peers shouldn't have expectations on who we are and how we should show up in life.
That is exactly the final question I have for you, is how can we use those wonderful tips for spending time with and listening to children when we're with other adults and when we're doing our own self-talk? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like number one, there's such a stigma around what your age should be in order to play. I feel like there's a huge stigma around gender and what play is appropriate to the status quo and what is not. And I wish that we would create these communities where, like you said with waving the freak flag, where being able to encourage others in our life, or if we find something that brings us joy, that feels meditative, that finally shuts off the brain because it is so loud all of the time. I've become a very big fan of this whole body doubling that you hear about, especially in the ADHD community.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So it's actually incredibly simple. It is, if you have a hard time getting something done, by just reaching out and asking, like, your husband, your friend, your sister, whoever it is, like, hey, I've got this task, I really, really need to get it done, but for some reason my brain tells me that I should get it done, but my body really doesn't want to. Just saying, hey, I've got to sit down and I need to like crank out this project. would you please either hop on a video chat? We don't have to talk to each other, but do you have work you need to get done? Or I have to clean my house. It's so boring. But it would make it a whole lot more fun if I was on the phone talking to my friend. Maybe we're going to play our favorite 90s jam. Being able to do things and have somebody else available to do it too. I think this goes into play a lot, is reaching out to others and creating a community. It sometimes is a comfortable thing for people to do alone, but sometimes it can actually feel embarrassing. Or let's say I never answered your question with snowboarding. It's a whole lot more fun to do something when you have a buddy.
Well, also what you're saying really makes sense because, when you said the body doubling, it's vulnerability and it's self-awareness. It's being in the present and realizing what you need and confidently and compassionately speaking out. And that's what children do. That's exactly what we're talking about, what young children do. So I love that advice to the rest of us because, again, it's just coming from a place of, I know what my needs are. I'm going to vulnerably ask for them. And most people, when you come to them from a place of humility, they're gonna step up. I love that. So again, Kim, from our time together, what I'm walking away from is play is practice. And to me, that's incentive every day to make it part of the daily schedule. And I'm going to add it onto my daily schedule. So to finish up our beautiful conversation today, we are going to do what I call the power round. I've got 3 questions, and I'm going to start with Julie. They're exactly the same questions, and I would love to hear both of your thoughts on these to kind of conclude our time together today. So we'll start with Julie. Julie, what has been the most impactful benefit of adding play to your life?
Relaxation. It really helps me unwind. It helps me sort through stress kind of things and minimize that stress like a downgrader transformer. You start out really high level of electricity and nervous tension, and then it just downgrades everything. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Kim, what has been the most impactful benefit for you of adding play to your life?
I believe the most impactful part of it is being able to allow myself to make mistakes and be able to not only do that, but self-discovery, that every single time I am playing, I am learning something new about myself and blowing my mind and realizing what I'm capable of creating or doing. And the last thing is, like I said, I have a very, very loud brain. And there's something about playing where time does not exist anymore. And I feel like that is a very, very precious tool as adults when we have so many real pressures and stressors that we can't ignore. But to be able to push pause on them for a hot second, I personally feel is life-saving for me.
I think it's not only life-saving physically, but mentally and emotionally. And again, as I said, when I chose the topic for today, I knew what was going to be right around the corner. And, to use the child care term, which probably isn't in fashion anymore, time out, we just need to take time out. And when you're talking about just being absorbed in your play, there's a state of flow. And I'm not going to try and pronounce the last name that's like 30 letters long of the psychologist who developed it, but it's a state of being where everything just falls to the side and you are just so utterly engrossed. And with the technology that's part of our lives right now, and I'm not going to condemn it because it has its benefits, we've lost the ability to be totally engrossed in the here and now, and play is just such a crucial part. So the next question I have for you, Julie, is what is your advice for us on how we can incorporate play into our lives?
Find something that gives you joy. I mean, obviously Playmobil is probably the best option, but it doesn't have to be. And do that, whether it's snowboarding or going mountain biking or taking up yoga or building Lego sets. All the Playmobil is a lot better than Lego. But you can do whatever makes you happy, and that can be your play.
I love that. And I like what you said about making you happy, that there's no, I should be doing this because this is what's popular or this would be appropriate, but it's literally the self-awareness and vulnerability of checking in with yourself. I love it. Kim, what is your advice for us on how to incorporate play into our lives?
Yeah, so I have two. Number one is play does not have to cost anything. There are so many resources that are out there, like park and rec programs, public library programs. FYI, there's a juggling club that happens here once a month, which is so cool to me. It is so cool. Going on, I do believe that social media has its place for sure. And to be able to find communities of people that are into the quirky, weird thing that you love is so validating. There are groups around people that are learning how to do dance moves with their dogs. There are so many things that you could learn how to do. And also, my second thing is never ever wait for permission for somebody to tell you it is safe and that it is welcomed to be a playful adult. I feel very, very strongly that there's no bragging rights that need to come with it. You're not having a deadline, you don't have to create a goal. It can be free play. It can be just devoting time to something that in that moment feels very, very good. I think we naturally turn things into goals or projects, and to be able to play because it just grounds us, it slows us down, or it makes us feel like we are in a magical fantasy world, or that we want to wear a cool costume. I think that that's something that nobody else can give us.
First you gave me play as practice, which is a huge takeaway. Now I'm really thinking, if you really think about it, free play. Mm-hmm. Freeing play, not just free play as doing what you want, but freeing play.
Yeah.
I love that. Mm-hmm. All right, Julie, here's our last one. Get ready. What is the top takeaway you'd like us to gain from today's conversation?
Have the courage to be yourself. Like, own what you like, do what you want, and be you, because there's no one else you can't be. Be yourself.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Kim, what is your top takeaway you hope that we all will come away with from today?
Well, we're like sisters from another mister. I feel very, very much like we are living possibly our very only life that this soul has. And to imprison ourselves by the judgments or opinions of other people who are not living our life is probably the most devastating idea. And so being able to find things that make us feel good is so precious. And the only thing that actually matters when it comes to observers is that you may in fact inspire somebody else. And it's like the cherry on the top.
I love that. And again, we talked about how the Playmobil has just given other people the vision to see that this can be done. And it's kind of funny if you think about it, because it's like, well, why couldn't it be done? Well, we just have our adult sensibility. So if we look at Kim's point of view of giving ourselves permission and Julie's gusto of doing it, that's a beautiful takeaway from today. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation. It was a pleasure taking a time out from the seriousness of life and focusing on lightness and joy. I hope that same feeling resonates with all of you. I'd like to take this opportunity to express gratitude to my guests, Julie Olson and Kim Hoppe, librarian Sarah Kelly, and the Cedarburg Public Library for making today's conversation possible. And special thanks go out to filmmaker Kim Reese for recording it today for us. A link to today's episode will be available on my website, awakeningtoinspiration.com. And I'm very excited at this point to say that the Compassionate Conversations series will be returning to the Cedarburg Library in the spring and fall of 2025, so please stay tuned for details. And until we meet again, may you find beauty.
Thank you.
And at this point, does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to share?
Kim, one of the things that you mentioned really struck home with me, which is playing seriously. We were talking about just even skating and having that mindset. I'm a firstborn child of firstborn parents, so every single task growing up was if you're going to do it, you're going to do it well.
You're a little mama.
Yeah,
Yep.
achieve, 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 achieve.
Mhm.
Do you have any tricks or tips to get into the mindset that the performance doesn't matter?
Mhm.
It's the focus of just letting go and being in the moment.
Absolutely. So I have a lot of anxiety about people just being around. For some reason, I always have this idea that everybody is watching me, as if you've ever seen Truman Show. I swear sometimes I think I am Truman and that this whole world, which sounds very egocentric, is completely surrounded around me, but it stems from anxiety. And I have found that a practice of mine is to sometimes, and I have in certain situations, if I'm comfortable with it, I close my eyes, and especially at concerts, dancing was always very scary for me. I love, love, love live music, and it is uncomfortable for me to dance in front of other people, but that's a natural activity that I can do it with my eyes shut. And I'm all about make-believe. So I close my eyes and I pretend that I am in this black room with just the stage and the live performers, and there's nobody else around. And it is harder sometimes than it seems, but I will even do it just going to places that give me anxiety, like Costco, and pretending that I'm moving about my day, and all of these other individuals are just these little fluttering butterflies that are just out doing their own thing, but really I'm the only person there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, did you have a question?
No, it's more of a question or an observation. Like growing up, I'm a little older than most of you. I come to find that we look at life, or society looks at us and takes it about it as like, gee, what do you do? Not who are you, but what do you do? Do. Well, you're better because you do this, he's better because he does that, she's better than this. And I now have the chance to play with more children. And I look at them, and children are wonderful because they take us for who we are. And I always say to the children, go ahead and be silly. Because when you're silly and when you play, you are you. You can be silly when you're young. You can be silly when you're older because they look at you and say, oh, he became a child again. He's now grandpa, you know. And we miss that in all those middle years. We forgot that we could just be there, as you said, in the minute, at the time, enjoying it, and we don't have to meet everybody else's obligation. The joke about, they said Peter Pan was a little boy who never grew up. Maybe we need to find the Peter Pan, or perhaps, I don't know what the Peter Pan would be for women, but for girls, because Wendy became mother, but whatever, she took that role, but should have been more. And that's kind of like, so when I go out and play, I notice that the kids now color a lot. They'll take something, they'll just make it, and they'll give me, or they'll give to people what they make because they want to share it. And I can take it and say, good job, and encourage them to do it. And so, in some way, like what you did, I'd like everybody to do that also for themselves. Because it's, whether it be music or art or whatever, poetry, we are who we are first, and then we do what we do to survive. The observation.
Interesting. Well, I'm thinking about the question that you asked of Julie, where you were describing, that you grew up and you were the firstborn and had a lot of responsibility. Isn't it beautiful in a way that when we come to one another and we can vulnerably express what we need, that all of a sudden we're in a larger community and we're not alone anymore? And that's the whole key to the playful mindset, is self-awareness, and like you said, the body doubling, speaking up for what we need. And that was just like a beautiful moment between the two of you. And that's exactly what community does and what connection does when we get that mindset back down to self-understanding, understanding of one another's, and compassion. I mean, that's where the magic is. And magic is often associated with the kids. young kids. I'm going to specify young kids because that's where they are, and we've got so much to learn.
So I have, when I was a kid in California, my grade school had, it got a grant of some sort, but all of us at school rode unicycles, and they had this unicycle room.
Cool.
And at recess, we'd all go running for the unicycles. And that's the one thing I always bring up when, you get asked the question, tell us something that we would never, figure about you. And for whatever reason,
I didn't even know this.
no, I've been thinking recently about, oh my God, it'd be so fun to ride a unicycle again, and started talking to friends about it. And, the last time I got on a unicycle, I realized that it required a lot of core muscles that I didn't even realize what core muscles were back when I was 10 years old. But I started talking about, I was at a bike shop one day and I saw a unicycle and it was, cheap, and I should get one. And then I started thinking, it would have been kind of funny if I got a unicycle when I was 35 and started riding around the neighborhood. I thought, a 60-year-old woman riding a unicycle, people are just going to talk.
It would have been awesome.
People are just going to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But a friend of mine was visiting last week, and after he left, he said, I left you a present in the garage. And he left a unicycle.
That is so
I really have
cool.
to start riding a unicycle.
But you're going to get to meet so many people in the local unicycle community because
Right.
there are others out there.
But I'm going to approach it with a whole new mindset.
Yay.
I love
because I
that.
was thinking it's just kind of creepy.
I
for a
wanna
60-year-old
learn.
woman to be riding a unicycle.
But this is the other thing is when you bring up something and you start actually sharing whatever your dream is, you start to find that there's other people that either already know how and other adults that play are pumped to teach what they know. Because it's always that the more the merrier mindset when you have playful people. Or you're going to have friends that are going to say, I never even thought about that before, but I want to join you. And then you're not alone. Then you have a cheer squad. You get to be the cheer squad and everybody's laughing when you fall. That's so cool.
I can't wait to see you out riding your unicycle.
Yeah.
My brother Joshua always used to say about any dream you had, like whether it was just inconsequential, like you wanted corn with your sandwich or whatever, or something huge and seemingly unattainable. He always said, it's your day, man. Make it happen.
Can I just
It's your
tell you,
name,
your
man.
writing about your brother was so touching.
Oh yeah, my Joshua, he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. And Joshua was the ultimate in the playful, finding the humor and everything. Josh was so good at celebrating the absurdities of life that I think there's so much we all could learn from Josh. That was one of his greatest gifts, was celebrating how absurd life can be and just going with it rather than dwelling on it in a bad way.
Yes.
So I have to thank Julie, and this will make sense to you. I live in Thiensville. My office was until recently above the North Shore Library
On Port Washington?
on Port Washington.
Okay.
And I was finding challenges getting from here to there. My standard drive used to be, I would tell people, I never got on the freeway because I don't love to drive either. There's 18 ways I can get there from here, put a pin in that. And on a bad day, if I hit a couple red lights, it was 15 minutes. Door to door, 15, 20 minutes. And there was a day, not this past summer, but the summer before, that it took me over an hour to get to the office. I go in one afternoon a week, took me over an hour to get to the office, and longer than that to get home, because I literally couldn't get there from here. And somebody that I know said, oh gosh, you have to look at Mommy, please, Playmobil. And it shifted so that when I would run into, oh gosh, I can't get down Green Tree, now where am I gonna go? And I'm gonna be late for the meeting. I would look for Ed, I'm not joking. And why is he doing this to me today? And
telling you, it's his
some
fault.
people sent me it took me an hour to get home, and they were like, oh, you have to read Mommy Plays Playmobil. You're just gonna connect with it so much. So, it shifted for me, like to that place of play, and like now I was like, and now I'm not cussing in the car anymore. I'm just like, where is Ed and why is he doing this to me today? And I will
So
be there
cool.
when I get there, and I will be home when I get home, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome. You're
I
welcome.
live down south of all the construction, but my friends who are all like up in this area, I connected all of them. I'm like, oh my God, you guys, you've got to read this. And then anytime I come up this direction, I'm always, what exits are open? Where do I,
Who knows?
where should I get off?
You never know which exits will be open or closed. I was at Bayside Garden Center earlier during the summer, and I just have a Playmobil T-shirt, like a T-shirt with the company logo on it. And this lady, over the geraniums or something, was like, "Do you like Playmobil?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." She goes, "You gotta look at Facebook. There's this group, blah blah blah." And she said, "I think she lives in the North Shore," and I'm like, "Oh, that sounds fun." She's like, "Oh, you gotta look, it's so funny." And I said, "Oh, I'll look at it when I get home." And then when I got home, my boys were like, "Why didn't you tell her that it was you?" And I was like, "No." I said I was in the mood to shop for flowers. And then I had a client I sold a condo to on the east side last summer. And he Facebook friended me shortly before the condo closed. And then about 4 or 5 months later, I had posted probably some super good find on Mommy Plays Playmobil, and you see me in the picture, you see my face, and he goes, "Wait a minute, you're my realtor." And I said, "I am, hi," and he goes, "Your Mommy Plays Playmobil." And I said, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "You've been like living a double life." That's you. And I said, "It's me." And he goes, "Oh my God, this whole time I didn't know that was you." And I said, "It was me the whole time." He goes, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Why would I have told you?"
Yeah.
So it's Playmobil out in the wild, and it's sometimes very fun. Ride your unicycle. I can't wait.
Do you have a unicycle in Playmobil?
I do. I have a guy on a unicycle. He's part of the mystery figures, which are my favorite things to collect, which is how I had the lady dressed as a bumblebee. We have my husband and son took down this hideous drop ceiling in our basement a couple years ago, and it was held by miles of 1x2 little boards. And so Craig's saving them, and I'm like, "Why are you saving all this wood?" And he's like, "It's gonna come in handy someday." And I'm like, "No, it's not. Get rid of it." And so I start collecting these figures, and I was like, "Gosh, I wish I had like little narrow shelves in my Playmobil station." And Craig's like, and I was like, now I have to admit I was wrong. So he built these shelves so that I can put all of my mystery figures on them.
They're
And
fabulous. When I look at them,
Oh,
I'm just like, oh my God.
it's so, every time I go down there, I was like, man, I have the best life in the whole world. Like, they're so much fun. And that house I got in Madison, the guy I bought it from, he came outside and it was all on his porch, and he said, "Did you really drive here from Milwaukee to buy this?" And I was like, "Oh, you bet your mom." I was like, "Do you know what a score this is?" But then I didn't want him to think, "Oh, he should up the price."
Right, yeah, be careful.
I was like, be cool. You don't really want it that bad. So I took it home and we started putting it all together and like figuring out, and I don't have the instructions, which is the best part of it, because then I have to figure it out. It's very satisfying. It's so fun. I was just working on it this morning.
I have to say something I'm married to Julie, which is the best decision in my life, maybe the worst on her part. But
Lies.
she, to go anywhere with her in public, she's always been like a kid since the first day we met. And that's one of the things I like about her. Like, she has little dances she does. Like, we went to Costco, and so she sees that sample table, where they're giving out samples, and she starts clapping her hands and then a dance. And then so I know it's coming for the rest, and she does these dances, and they're so funny. And so if you ever get a chance to go out somewhere where they're in public, if there's sample tables or if there's
That's what I'm
any
missing from my
movies,
Costco experience is you.
Jurassic Park, they'd all wear Jurassic Park t-shirts.
We matched. It was so
And
fun.
she'd be
That's awesome.
making friends, And yeah, it's really an experience.
The photograph that, because whenever a new Jurassic Park movie comes out, we as a family go see it, whether they want to or not. And so we all had matching t-shirts, and then we always go and have ice cream. We always go get Jurassic Park Legos and like build them while we're having ice cream. It's like a whole thing that went over a lot better when the kids were smaller. So this last time, now that just remember, there's a movie coming out summer of 2025. The last Jurassic Park movie, one of the kids took a picture of us as a family, and I'm holding the Lego set going like, and Callie's like this, and Henry's going, and Abe was the most tolerant of everyone, and Craig's just kind of like, and it was so, because you see all of our matching Jurassic Park t-shirts, and my very obvious excitement, and at best, their tolerance of the situation. But we saw the movie, it was super, super good. And I almost disowned Abraham though, because when they watched the original Jurassic Park, which my brother Joshua and I saw in the theater in 1993, Abe was like, this doesn't even look real. Like the special effects aren't very good. And I was like, well, you're out of the will.
This is why we have a better imagination than the kids, right? Yeah.
But now the movie, the Jurassic, I was like, let's watch the trailers. And kids are like, again? And I was like, oh, it's going to be so much fun. Oh, we had so much fun.
She's taught me a lot how to be like that. And being shy and taking things seriously, she's helped me to get in that mindset a little bit as much as I can. But I enjoy it. I've always encouraged her to be what she is, which is a very fun person who sees a lot of fun in life, who has not always had a very fun life. So it's very inspiring, I think. And I like that people, that has an effect on people. I always said, if you don't like her, it says more about you than it does about her.
Well, thank you, sweetie. I love you.
If you are Jurassic Park nerdy, do you watch the show Abbott Elementary?
No, but you know what? I think that came up on Peacock or something as like a suggested watch.
It's very good.
So the episode from this week, they wear nerdy, one of the couples in there wear nerdy Jurassic Park costumes.
Craig.
I'm not going to tell you anything
No.
more about it. You are going to love
That's
it.
one
I thought
reason.
it was humorous, and I'm not a Jurassic Park fan, except I love Jeff Goldblum. But you will watch this episode, and I bet you will fall in love with it.
I totally want to watch that. We started watching Lost on, I think Netflix, is whatever streaming we were watching the other night. And I never got into the Lost craze when it happened. And Greg pointed out, he's like, this show came out 20 years ago. And I was like, wow. And it's okay, but I'm not loving it. So I think that sounds like a lot more fun.
And
Abbott Elementary, it's called.
And it's, it's network TV. The episode's probably 20 minutes long.
Oh, totally.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
like 22 minutes.
But because of that, you're gonna see these two costumes, and you're gonna be, and there is a part where they embrace the nerdiness of what they're doing.
Score.
It's so funny.
When Craig and I met, we were talking about what our favorite movies are, and I was like, oh, what's your all-time favorite movie? And he says Das Boot. And I was like, what's that? It turns out it's foreign language and maybe black and white. And he goes, well, what's your favorite movie? And I go, Jurassic Park. And he goes, no, for real, what's your favorite movie? And I was like, that is for real. Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. And he loves things like Das Boot. He tried to send me to the Oriental Theater once to watch some some foreign movie or something. And I got home and he was like, well, did you love it? And I go, it was I think it was, and he's like, what was the problem? And I said, I don't know, it's just boring. And he goes, is it because it had good direction and quality acting? And I was like, yes, I hate those things.
And a lack of dinos.
And no dinosaurs, nothing blew up. Why would I want to see that? We're very yin and yang, we're polar opposites in many, many ways. But it works. It's worked for coming up on 24 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So can I make an observation? I'm looking out into the audience right now, and I'm seeing smiles and relaxed faces. Can we all do our best when we part ways and say goodbye today to take this beautiful, quiet mind, focusing on the here and now, and as Kim beautifully said, play is practice. Can we in the next week move this forward? And not only us move it forward, but at least one other person we encounter this week, share it with them. Encourage them to be in their present, simple, best mind and see how far we can send this. I have this saying, I've met so many people walking around Cedarburg since I moved here, just out in public. I call it lighthouse people. And it's people who can feel the positivity. They attract the people who also feel the positivity and pass it out. And just by focusing on being in the present, just the smiles and the lightness in this room, let's see what we can do. This is a microcosm thing we can do to make things in the macrocosm better.
I have one more story. So this morning, that's popped up on my phone, it was an announcement about this that you made, and I don't know if it was on Instagram or Facebook or
It was
what
on
it was.
Facebook, yeah.
And I saw it, and I shot it off to her, my friend in Cedarburg, and I said, hey, did you see the invitation I sent you? Do you want to go? And she responds back, she's like, I do not want to go to another political rally. And I said, no.
Here,
Yeah,
here.
No, I'm done with those too, but have a look at it, it was, that's how we ended up here.
There were, I'm Kim's husband. There were two people in our old neighborhood down Milwaukee that were always really joyful in their world, would spark joy as people drove by, and there was Stickman. And
That he would juggle a stick
it was like-
everywhere he
everywhere,
was.
waiting for the bus,
Yes.
like everywhere he was just like walking around the town, like just doing this all the time. And then there was another guy who had like headphones on and he would dance through the neighborhood.
Picking up trash, like
Pick up trash
Michael
and dance
Jackson
through the
moves along
neighborhood
KK.
and, like, dance. Full on,
Yeah.
like Michael Jackson going through the neighborhood just picking up trash. And it was the coolest.
Yeah, there's
I
a
love
house
that.
3 down for me that has a square that they permanently painted on the sidewalk that says dance here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And-
cool. This is in Cedarburg?
Yeah,
I need the location.
and so every time I go by, walking the
Can I
dog,
dance?
doesn't matter, going to the Piggly Wiggly.
Love it,
Oh, that's so cool.
love it.
I love weirdos.
Yeah, because we all are.
Totally.
Some of us are just right now in drag.
Yeah,
We're hiding
some people
it.
just hide it differently.
Yeah.
Like, just celebrate you, be you. Let your freak flag fly.
And
I
that
love that.
is the power of play.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
Well, thank you all for being with us today.